Welcome back, guys, to the LCK. We're here joined in for the after match segment. My name is Joel, and I'm going to be translating for these guys, Dangun and Bitdol. And we're going to be talking about a couple games that ended after that Game 1 victory by Griffin. Really was going to show you that Griffin had a really good time, a fun time without, whereas JAG had just an opposing bad time on the Rift. For JAG, I think today's games wasn't the best start in terms of how they start off in Game 1, but what can we expect from them from Game 2 is going to be kind of what we've been going over here. And there was little champions that we want to mention. That seems like an interest. With 8.11 still going strong, and we wanted to see how the synergy works out between different interactive champions and see how they all meld and mesh in together. We get to look at through the videos as well. Let's get the first video and find out. This is Ivern and Rengar. This was right from LPL. It feels like the Rengar seems like the jungler to start off, but it does help out from the Ivern assisting it. It just feels like, you talk about the Karthus and Nunu comp, and you talk about the Tark and Mastery comp, something that really can synergize with the jungler and one laner. Does kind of exemplify why we get the Ivern and the Rengar comp, seemingly a popularity in Rise. And I feel like something that would come up in LCK could be sometime soon. We're gonna have to depend on that and see if that happens. We also see a new composition as well. And this is Heimerdinger right here. Something that comes out in competitive play. This is G2 and Rocket, and see, you can just get a kill with the ultimate and the turret mixed in together, and that's what you're gonna get. This one right here, right before it dies out, just uses making sure that Zhonya is there all the time, and we're looking at the kind of what the turrets can do with the Heimerdinger. It just goes to show how you can utilize different champions nowadays, and allows for a lot more versatile meta that we have here in 8.11. And it seems like still the bot lane, the power shift is something that's so important currently in this meta, where just put all the power into the bot lane, and the one that wins out does eventually win out the game. And we're kind of seeing that, once basically the experiments haven't been completely figured out, and still is going strong in terms of what we're going through, and that was just a lot of people who doesn't watch the leagues abroad will have a harder time catching up to the most recent trends, but I'm sure everyone here at LCK Global Chat, they're here to watch, and so we watch the EU LCS and so forth, and get to look at what some of the people said on the comments, and or just putting a lot of power on Tars, and just Griffin in general still feel like they're understated in terms of how good they actually are. But something that's not over is that the actual series is still in hand, where JAG can come back. So and now we're gonna wait for Bitdol's one-line summary. And of course, it feels like JAG needs to emphasize on their picks and bans. And the trick is important, is what it's saying here, and see what that matters, and gonna find out. And that was Dangun and Bitdol, and this was Joel doing the translation for this segment. I'm gonna throw it back to the caster.
Thank you very much, Joel. An absolute pleasure as always. We get him a little bit earlier this time around, as let's check out the MVP. It is going to be Tarzan.
Yeah, 003 MVP. Could it be any sweeter?
Absolutely not.
We should call this the Monte Cristo Award. All rotations, no killing.
Yep.
In fact, you know what happened? He didn't like his kill, so he corner break before it.
Exactly.
He was like,
they
that kill
got rid
never
of it.
happened.
They got rid of it because he didn't even want it, didn't need it, still got the MVP.
Oh, beautiful Monte Cristo play here from Tarzan. This guy gave no mundos about getting kills. He just wanted to be everywhere Kakao wasn't, which turned out to be where all the action happened.
Yep, exactly right. And they just ganked Someone a couple of times and then just cleared control wards for an entire game and won by over 10,000 gold.
How many kills did he get on control wards? We won't know,
That's
sadly.
that should have been in the first column.
I know.
It would have been at least 11.
The Flash smite away there to deny there being the Drake, because consider that actually Teddy, Kakao, and Nova gave everything to get into the pit so they could get the Mordekaiser Spirit, and then didn't get it and died. So that actually ended up being a very clutch pickup. We couldn't find any more cool clips to show you because he didn't kill anyone.
Nope.
But it was very nicely played by
We should have just had a
Tarzan.
montage of him killing control wards and just being exactly where he needed to be on the map. But we are going to hear the fancy music, so that will be the player change and starting over the Griffin side. So it looks like Chovy's going to make his way in once again for Game 2 as Rather steps out.
It seems to be a Game 2 thing rather than a red or blue side thing. As we mentioned at the opening of the broadcast, Chovy is the more mechanically skilled player. He can pop off on the Zoe, but also the Aurelia, the Yasuo, the carries. Let's see if we see him on a carry. He's building a big fan base. So we're going to love to see a bit more Chovy here. And it makes the team a little bit different as, we also
Speaking
hear
of a
the
little bit
music
different,
on the side of Jin Air.
Some understandable stuff, and you can see a bit of a spoiler alert as you saw him in the booth just there. It is Kakao stepping out once again, and Umti's going to be stepping back in as well. So
Does make you wonder.
different beast for Jin Air right here.
Does make you wonder, Atlas, when is the right next time for Kakao? What does he need to show to be able to get another starting spot? Because he's been off the boil 2 games in a row. He's had to play a lot of games of Nunu with Nunu Karthus, and just a lot of slavedom, sadly, for with Karthus and Smite not allowed at the moment. Will we see pop off? Because that is always a fun thing to watch on the Rift.
Yeah, in fact, the Nunu is the only thing he's played more than once. Otherwise, he's just been going through the variety bucket of junglers. But will mean that both of these squads are going to be changing up a fair bit. Of course, Chovy does like to be a little bit more of that. Carry played 3 completely different champions to the 3 champions that Rather has displayed, and I love that. When you've got players with completely different identities in their roles, it did seem a little bit like Kakao was just a poor man's Umti in the games that he's played so far.
Very, very weird thing to say.
I know, right?
The passage of time, Father Time can be cruel to everyone. Not Papa Time, he's all right.
Maybe Kakao is a poor man's 2014 Kakao, 2013 Kakao.
I started realizing that porn might be a poor man's fly, and I got sad, so I stopped thinking.
We did have that conversation. That was very, very sad.
But here is Griffin, their coach CV Max. Immaculate game 1, almost a perfect game. Just a kill right at the end, and a Cloud Drake going the way of Jin Air.
Yep.
Now Umti's there, so expectations a little bit different. Umti, Chovy, what will the difference make? Let's find out.
I have a feeling picks and bans is only going to change on the side of Griffin, because it has been very similar champions being picked up by Kakao and Umti, but what is going to change, we're going to find out right now, as the first ban for Jin Air is going to come in as they've switched over to the blue side. Once again, going to be Shen, though, not going to change too much just yet.
Shen and Nocturne always have to be considered when Griffin is in the game, and when a FLICKR in the game. I guess no coincidence, both those teams are packing up the wins, but they are great Nocturne teams. See how the draft goes here. Camille was banned in the previous game. A lot of jungle focus in the bans, if you remember. Ended up with Xin Zhao versus the Trundle.
Interesting that the Rakan ban's going to come in first up here. It was the final ban for Griffin in Game 1, and now the first for them in Game 2.
I want to draw attention to the fact that Talia was not picked or banned. It seemed like the Talia priority yesterday was a bit too high, given that she can no longer take Smite. If you're joining us late, no Talia with Smite or no Karthus with Smite is allowed, and there is 1 skin disabled from Vladimir, but obviously
and it's a fancy new one as well that looks super cool.
Come on, Bloodlord is the OG
I
and
know,
the best.
but you don't have as many of the really cheesy puns with Bloodlord.
That's true.
But we don't really care about that because we're
Speaking
on the
of really
client.
cheesy things, it's actually Jin Air banning the cheesy things.
Yeah, going to get rid of it. So it means that they're probably not going to be going for that first pick Lulu, like you mentioned earlier on the blue side.
Yet, first pick Lulu was the most obvious thing in the previous game, and we actually had Lulu fall through picks and bans, so I don't know what's going on.
And then Griffin played one of the best macro League of Legends games ever, so you can't really fault them for the draft.
I can't. Where was the Lulu at, Griffin? Come on. But Lulu priority going to be lower with Rather in the not in the lineup. It is Chovy who's moved on, and Ashban. Very interesting.
Feels like a throwaway a little bit here on the side of Griffin. But the very, very fast Vladimir lock in, and might be the first time that we're going to see Vladimir out of Teddy if they do want to flex it towards the bottom side, but Grace could be playing it.
You can take Ryze X, though, in this round, and then try to counter the Vlad with the Ryze wherever he does end up. Mid lane Ryze has seen a bit of success. Chovy has been the resident Zoe on the side of Griffin. And
an absolute monster on the champion as well. Hasn't died yet over 3 games.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad at all. I wanted to check his KDA, but it's not applicable at the moment. Can't actually...
A bit bigger than 003 in terms of stat line, as Tarzan might just be blind picking the Trundle.
He's feeling it. He's feeling the Trundle.
Nocturne's banned. Master Yi and Camille are banned. If Tarzan's always ahead of the game, which he was in the previous game, Trundle's really good. Trundle just has issues when things happen elsewhere and he can't close the gap. So Trundle is going to be very high ticket for Griffin. That's a new thing we're learning about. I feel like Griffin were the first to understand Mundo priority. Now they've got the Trundle priority, but with Umti in the lineup, the carries could certainly come out.
Yeah.
Now remember, if it is to be a Taliyah, it's not going to be a Taliyah jungle. And if that is a mistake by Umti, there will have to be some sort of ruling, but gonna think that's mid lane for Grace, and Jinna did play the mid lane Taliyah Skarner duo very well in the past, you'll remember. Would they take Skarner in this round? Oh boy, that was a good thing to remember on time.
Nice work, Papa.
It's gonna be Skarner and Taliyah, and they're gonna try and play the Rotato style with the Weaver's Walls.
Well, I mean, you're saying good things because, you know, yes, they were good at this particular combination, but Skarner has been woeful in the LCK for the first couple of weeks, so see whether Jin Air can turn around Skarner's woes as well as their own moving into this game, but it is certainly something to get a little bit concerned about. It's Morgana. Remember the priority in Game 1? That was a first pick Morgana on the blue side for Griffin. They are opting into it again.
They really like the Morgana. A good old pick for Lahens, whose line skill shots. Remember, he was the god of Elise support years ago when he was rank 1 in solo queue. He's also the god of Singed. I never forget that because people like to remind you about how good his Singed is.
Yep.
I love the fact that he climbs so much because he just plays support until he loses. Then he starts playing Singed. And he doesn't lose many of those games, trust me. But one day we might see the flex. Wouldn't that be fun? Griffin might be the team to
that could be
send
really
him top
cool.
lane. If they're playing Singed and it's Sword, that's always a little bit sad, given that Lahens is such a legendary player on that champion. He gets 2 coverage bans as Morgana, as Soraka and Fiddle are both annoying and have strong laning phases, so they ban him away.
Yeah, Soraka, Fiddle, Rakan are actually banned by Griffin last time around as well, just in a slightly different order this time, as Soraka and Rakan going to be switched around just a little bit.
Frustrating to have to ban Mundo. It could have been a blind pick for Sword, but it's such a strong pick against the Zoe. It sucks that you're like, okay, it's probably going to be first rotation, have to show respect. Note that Aatrox is available, was banned away many times yesterday and in this game. Speaking of things that are available, Chovy's hovering the Aurelia. Where's the Aurelia going, though? It could be Viper, because we already have a Zoe in the draft.
Yeah, it looks like it will be most likely Viper.
But why?
As our Sword could potentially play it, but we haven't seen it as successfully utilized on the top side.
This is surprising. So they know that Taliyah is going to be mid lane or support.
Yep.
So they take the Aurelia and say, Aurelia versus Taliyah, that's a good matchup. But if you end up with Aurelia versus Darius in the bot lane, that's a very good matchup for Darius because he is so good at punishing people who are melee, but there's a lot of conditional statements there. Darius is considered, but won't be locked in. It's going to be the Lulu on the side of Jin Air, our first of the night.
Yeah, and I really like the sick flex coming in for Jin Air here as well. The Lulu can be flexed between mid and support, as well as the Taliyah at this point in time where she can't be taking the smite.
And remember, Darius offers nothing in a siege, and so far they have indexed pretty heavy on siege with Taliyah Skarner, looking for picks and also setting up around objectives. Could also be team fight and try to use the Weaver's Wall in combat. It's going to be the Darius anyway. So Griffin have one more pick. There's a lot of flex going on the side of Jin Air. The only thing they know for sure is that Taliyah cannot be in the jungle because of the Riot rule.
Yep. Feels like the Lulu switching between those positions as well, as we don't know where the Vladimir is going at the same time. So Teddy could be playing the Darius. We could have Vlad on the top side. It's most likely that it's going to be Vlad on the bottom side of the map.
And to be clear, Jin Air may not know the answer to that question until they see all of Griffin's picks as well. We already saw SKT flexing FLICKR into the bot lane to try to get a matchup they wanted. So we'll see what it all means from here. Ornn is going to be the top laner. It will be Morgana and Aurelia in the bot side. That will remain Teddy on the Darius. You'd imagine they can swap a couple of times. Ornn just ends up negating a lot of the relevance of Darius. It's not a terrible matchup for Darius. It's a bit of a farm lane for both, but he can put together items. Let's see where the flex finally ends, because both teams can flex. I think they really would love Darius versus Aurelia, but they're not going to get it.
No, not going to happen. So this is going to be the locked-in champions. Does make some sense because Sohan, of course, has played a heck of a lot more Darius. We haven't seen too much of the Darius in Teddy's match history, but of course we don't really have all the information now that scrims have started in earnest. But a curious situation given the Darius prevalence over the Aurelia.
Viper's playing another unique champion. He has a Yasuo game, he had a GP game, and now he's moving on to the Aurelia that we saw Teddy struggle on to get a good laning phase out of. Vladimir Lulu is double range, Lulu's strong lane presence. Vladimir in the early game not so strong. See how the itemization is, because getting a Vamp Scepter in the bot lane will be pretty important to help the Aurelia to sustain through some of the trades.
Yeah, and Viper, I mean, I know you mentioned it last game, but I just want to reiterate that this dude was an incredible, mechanically gifted AD carry player.
Maybe he can turn on with the Aurelia.
Yeah, we'll see whether the Aurelia is going to be able to dip into some of that challenge pool, because we know all of the heroics that you can demonstrate on the champion. But guys, let's go to Summoner's Rift and see whether he can do it. GNF fans seemed like they've turned up a little bit more than the Griffin fans in the audience. Still filtering in more and more people. So we may actually get some of them on your screen. And here they are.
A lazy Wednesday afternoon for people who aren't working or studying. I believe it's exams at the moment in Korea, so there might be some people that have already finished their exams and come out. But like you mentioned, we've probably got about 80 to 100 fans here in the audience. And this is a number that you and I were discussing pre-match, is that Aurelia's win rate, it's been sucky. 18% is bad. And you might say, is Aurelia overrated? And the answer is yes and no. The yes part is that the meta right now that we're seeing in Korea with no marksman doesn't really suit Aurelia. Aurelia mid is about freezing the mid lane wave and then all-inning on someone. And that's still a viable option. But then if that doesn't work, if the enemy team's playing defensive, you want a 1-3-1 until the teamfight phase, and then if you disarm the AD carry, you win. But there is no AD carry, and bruisers and tanks can actually deal with Aurelia quite well. She's kind of forced to be in the mid lane or the duo lane because there's so many matchups she loses to in the top side or gets out-farmed. We saw yesterday the Mundo outlasting her, Ornn can outlast her, Darius kills her and wins the lane. That Aurelia, with no AD carries to target, with 1-3-1 being outclassed by teamfight, as we have teamfight teams on both sides most of the time, Aurelia in this current meta in Korea, a few patches removed from MSI, is actually quite out of her element. And that means we just have seen, I think, too much Aurelia for power level picks early that aren't working.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, one of the most successful teams to use the Aurelia so far, only 2 victories so far, was MVP. You know, Ian on the very first day of the LCK, getting that quadra kill. Really is looking good, but so far the Aurelia on the bottom side of the map is looking great on the side of Griffin. Viper even landing the E on the first time. Like it, getting his eye in. Often landing that first skill shot really does set you up to get things done.
In a long lane, maybe you actually max the E second. There's a lot of disagreement on Aurelia. Q max is obvious, but from there, to watch FLICKR play it in solo queue, W max in mid lane makes sense because it does help with line wave clear. But in a long lane, to me, the target acquisition, and obviously I want to see more of these very skill-intensive stuns that are quite hard to land, so I'm a big fan of the E max.
I like that Viper tends to proc the stun after dashing as well, just to add to the confusion. It does make it a little bit more difficult to dodge.
Chovy's got himself a Super Soaker, picked it up off the ground.
It's a very early Super Soaker as well. Uses it to clear out the wave, as you just saw. Azumti's going to be able to get himself a Rift Scuttler as well. A little bit behind the times as far as Rift Scuttle takes. You saw Tarzan getting rid of his very early on.
Rune-wise, Electrocute on Vladimir seems to be the duo lane take. In solo lanes, Phase Rush still is king, but in the duo lane was an interview with Sangyun of Hammer Life Esports, who we'll see in our final match of the day. It is a Super Wednesday, guys, in case you're unclear why we start so early. The Super is not necessarily the matchups, the telecom wars, etc., but about the fact that we have 3 best-of-3s today, so we have to start early to accommodate that. In case you're watching Korea for the first time, and given we might have some new NA fans in a more friendly time zone, we have fixed starting times. If this is a 2-0, the next set starts at 5 p.m. Korean Standard Time and 8 p.m. Korean Standard Time. I know some conversions are required there, but basically, one series starts, If it doesn't end within 3 hours, we play it out, then have a delay. If it ends way before 3 hours, we still wait 3 hours to start the next series.
Yeah, so at the moment it is 1 hour and 45 minutes away, no matter what, unless this is going to go extraordinarily long, and that's going to rely on Jin Air to turn around their performance. And already Umti hasn't been ganked in his own jungle, so that is a good start here for the Skana, because here's the gank on the top side as Soan is wondering why Griffin hates him. And look at all the terrain they can set up as well. The double pillars are in there, but not able to grab the kill, just getting the flash.
No cooldowns yet, but you mentioned double pillars, and I have a bit of a worrying moment, given that we've had multiple pillar and temporary terrain bugs this week. Fingers crossed it's not one of those games. They ran out of damage, couldn't quite kill the Darius, but getting the summoner out of Darius kind of trivializes lane impact. And we mentioned that Jin Air, all things being equal, would have loved to have Darius versus the Aurelia. That hasn't happened, and now Darius has a really tanky champion that you remember why you weren't seeing so many Darius picks in previous maps.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of it, but at the moment, his wave is also in an absolutely terrible position. So as far as top lane is concerned, this is the horror moment for Soan. Completely out of summoner spells and now also out of a lot of options here on the Darius. Tarzan is going to go back home, grab his first buy. Skirmishes Saber as well as a root. Oh no, just going to go for the boots. The Predator was opted in for from Umti very early on as he went back very quickly and has now been able to catch up in these camps as well.
Speaking of boots, quite common to see Swifty boots come out of the Talia in the mid lane now, just to have more lane presence. From the jungle, you see sock boots rush very often, but boots too, and then the fact that it's so easy to get your rock serving passive, much less setup time, or out of combat time now. It's when you start getting roaming. The roaming is certainly very powerful on the Talia.
Not to mention the 15 flat movement speed that you got as well, meaning that just you can dash around the rift a heck of a lot quicker.
It fits with our theme, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Of course, that's after the worked ground movement speed was taken away.
Sure.
Just evening out. We've got Tarzan once again to come in here and take a very early dragon this time. Remember, first dragon did go over to the side of Jin Air, so on track for that perfect game of Griffin this time. Not going to let those pesky drakes slip through their fingers.
I was reminded of how good King's Tribute passive is when they stole away the little honey fruit, and I'm like, that's rude, and then he got all his health back from Drake. If you guys aren't aware, the passive is that when anything around him dies, monsters, minions, champions, etc., he gets a flat percentage of healing. So he, you know, ends up being very sustained in most situations.
That's why I've been playing a hell of a lot of Trundle top against Mundos, and then killing him first in a team fight, and then getting all of my health back. It is brilliant.
As you know, I partake in the banning of Mundo strategy.
Yes, you do, but I'm still in the ELO where I have to ban Master Yi every game, or Yasuo every game. Whether it's on my team or not on my team. Someone's like, I need to play Yasuo. I'm like, well, I'm banning it.
Sounds like ELO heaven over there.
Oh, it is ELO heaven. I absolutely love it. As we've got a bit of engagement on the bottom side as Viper completely out of mana. But Lehens is going to easily be able to sort out that particular trade. Instead he gets bound, but it's a good flick back onto Chovy. Immediately utilizes the heal as he has another flash, picks it up off the ground, and Chovy's going to be okay. A Weaver's Wall comes in, but now the Ignite's there, and Grace, he has to flash to get the hell out of the way. All right, Portal Jump comes in as Chovy, he's got so many flashes under his belt. Finally uses his own one. And he's going to be able to get out of the way here. Bottom side.
Because he was so healthy to start that off, the moment the flash and ultimate came in from Skarner, he comes out half health, has extra flashes to escape, able to open distance to his jungler. His Tarzan was in the right spot. It's a cool passage. It was quintessential Zoe. Then result is actually Lehens roams up. They get a bit of harassment into the mid lane, and it won't be to the huge cost of Aurelia on the bot side, you would imagine.
Yeah, and Aurelia just doing the standard thing from seasons gone by. What was it, Season 2, that we'd be so used to seeing Aurelia sitting underneath the turret with two people waiting to try and take him down. This time, he's going to be fine, just able to clear out that way very, very well with the Blade Surge as well as his autos. So
he has gone for very much a non-interactive laning purchase of a very early stack of magic resist. Negatron Cloak.
Oh, I was hoping for this!
And it's back! Season 2, baby!
Yeah, the Wit's End comes in. We've got this lane swap Aurelia. It's happening. Viper's gonna do it. Wit's End picked up first item.
But now you really want to send your Darius into the Aurelia.
Oh, yeah.
You could lane swap this, actually, if you're Jin Air, when your teleports are back up.
SKT did it. Sort of. That was from mid lane, of course, but A little bit further to run, but still the same idea.
Witsend Aurelia was the old counterpick to the Cannon top meta in Season 2, back when Press R and Run at them was coined by St. Vicious.
Man, St. Vicious. You're all about the,
he's the coach
old
of
names.
FlyQuest.
That's true.
He's back in the limelight again. That man gets around to different organizations now, currently with FlyQuest. At the time when he made that comment on CLG still, I believe.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Viper has the passive now, the extra attack speed and on-hit damage passive, and now the Wit's End, which is also very similar. So, theoretically, if he gets 4 or 5 last hits and then all ends, a lot of on-hit damage.
Yeah. It's going to be really a problem for Teddy and Jeanette to deal with. Is Nova down here as well, but they are getting zoned from this wave. Teddy on his way to the Spellbinder, but not quite there just yet, so completed item's going to win out. 20 CS is approximately the lead here for Viper, so the Aurelia win rate certainly not looking great, but Griffin trying to boost it here in game number 2 against Jinair.
Gotta say, the Wits End Magic Resist does a number on a lot of members of Jinair's roster.
Oh, yeah. Even Ascana.
Only Darius known for his physical damage.
And his passive is magic damage, so not useless.
I knew you were going to say that too.
Yeah, I know you did.
Even though it's of no value.
I had to.
Yes, reducing the 20-odd damage to 12.
You remember old runes as well. I used to play Hybrid Pen on my Darius top as well. Watch that sick passive damage.
Don't talk to me.
I can be trusted to do one thing, and that's to give you useless information. As in goes Viper, good exhaust. He's going to stop a lot of that damage, but Griffin get that for free, holding on to all of their summoner spells.
Viper slides through. We're definitely seeing a lot more lane presence from this Aurelia as Chovy and Tarzan considering their options in the bot lane.
Yeah. Just going to get rid of at least half the health bar of this outer turret as Chovy comes in with the Paddle Star. And there's the Flash Pillar as well on top of Grace, trying to get out of the way, but the Trouble Bubble lands, and that's going to spell death and first blood for Griffin.
They made it. The Trundle and Zoe look like a deadly ganking duo, but that's because Grace knew that Flash was on cooldown. Tarzan knew that Grace's Flash was on cooldown, put the pillar in, made it much more predictable to hit that Trouble Bubble. Nicely done, and it's 11 minutes into the game. That is the first blood of Griffin versus Jinair game 2.
Yeah, and top laners both going to be roaming down to this mid lane here as well, as we do have the Ornhorn still available. As Portal Jump just going to get Chovy in there for some harass, and that's just going to guarantee the outer turret. It's going to be Umti and so on just giving up. Not going to be able to stop that one from falling down. So first turret and first blood going down very, very quickly. And once again, 2,000 gold lead very early on. Viper does set up the mark onto Teddy, but doesn't actually go in for the Blade Surge on top of it.
And I must admit, I'm getting really enamored with the Wits End rush because...
Oh, it's so good.
Consider the support matchup. The thing to take away here is, remember, the Lulu priority has been very low for Griffin this series. The Morgana priority has been high. If you're going to go Wits End on the Aurelia, Aurelia can 1v2 or 1v1 against Vlad and Lulu, and has a stack of magic resist earlier to not die to an electrocute all in. Lahens is unlocked to roam with CC to make kills happen, and he just straight up wins the 1v1 against the Vladimir because of the Wits End, just creating such a big swing in the momentum. If you're building a slow Trinity Force and have a Vamp Scepter and like a Stinger at this point, you're going to lose trades to a Vladimir. But with this item build, the Phage second, he wins the trades, he unlocks his support. This is actually genius from the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and I actually remember talking about the Wits End Phage Power Spike as well back in the day. That was a thing. So Viper bringing everything back as Papa's head in hands at the moment. Oh, you just don't like it when I talk about useless stuff. It's my thing. You got to get used to it.
You just love talking about power spikes.
I do.
I get triggered every time you say the word.
Well, Umti's going to be able to clear out his red buff. We'll see whether he's able to land a successful gank. Does have that Impale back up again. Predator is there as well. His ultimate comes in here from Viper, but it's good positioning, like we mentioned, from Umti on the bottom side. Hemoplague is in there. It's not going to get too much. That stopwatch was god tier on the side of Lahens, but it's not going to be enough to save him. Teleports utilized means that he is going to fall, but Grace punished for his positioning on the roam, and Griffin are going to be able to get one back.
1-for-1 so far. Drake is up, so this stuff doesn't mean the end of it.
Chovy's picked up a flash, remember, so happy to play pretty aggressively. Now the Trouble Bubble is going to land. Chovy gets in there. Actually, the flash coming in as well just to augment that damage, but not enough. Paddle Star not going to register enough damage.
Was a counterfeit flash found on the street, so that's going to be his own summoner. This does give them position on the Drake, though, and that will be a nice backup objective for Griffin. But now they're looking around it, but will they fully commit to it with the Aurelia back? She has teleport, but for now seems like no for Griffin.
Yeah, and Chovy wanted to clear out that mid lane as well, so Jin successfully get rid of them, but actually Tarzan held on to it.
TP, remember?
Yeah, they know that it's just not going to be able to do too much as goes the Rift Herald that Umti managed to pick up earlier, but
Who's
Griffin,
next
they are
leveling who?
Yeah, they are in position to try and take this one down. It is going to be able to get at least one charge, as this Mountain Drake has just taken a pounding, but it hasn't actually got anything done yet. Weaver's Wall comes in as the binding's going to land, and now the Ornhorn from Sword is going to sound, and Chovy grabs the dragon somehow. Jinair now in trouble as they've already lost their jungler. Grace is going to be gray screen, alive for a second, and then back into that death chamber yet again. It's a disaster for the Taliyah. They lose 3, and Griffin, you can never doubt them today.
Griffin are pulling the trigger, but unfortunately for Jinair, we've had a couple of teams down the bottom also botch execution. This is about the smite from Umti. Watch when he smites. Does he smite for health? Smites, I think, to actually secure because he was above 500 health. Misses it. It dies to just the incidental damage on the W from the Zoe, and from there, everyone's out of position. The engage is so much more reliable on the side of Griffin. They take down the kills. They don't even lose that outer bot lane turret that had free target acquisition from Shelly. Now the gold lead from Griffin is eerily similar to game number 1.
Yeah, it's getting real scary. 6,000 gold, 15 minutes into the game. This may actually even be worse, potentially, because at least Jinair were pushing on the bottom side. Now this game, Teddy and Nova have just been bullied. 23 CS is the lead here for Viper against the Vladimir. Teddy, first time on the champion, just not looking too great. So we're going to have a look at this damage. Chovy's just so damn good at Zoe.
Entire game damage, it's not the last team. It's clear. But look at the difference between Morgana and Lulu. Usually Lulu's the one that has the lane presence, but Aurelia has controlled this lane to the point where Lulu's looked afraid to actually look for auto attack trades. Didn't go for the Spell Thief's Edge, so has done less auto attacking as a result. His GP10 was more passive and respectful, but not the numbers you want to see. And Viper's had a lovely time just farming up, soon to have a Trinity Force, putting it together slowly in the duo lane, and almost feels like the next movement from Jinair is kind of pass-fail. If it doesn't come off, maybe this series is done. If it does come off, maybe they have one more lease on life.
Yeah, Lahens with the beautiful airy scouting is going to spot out the fact that he was correct in playing safe. Umti was on the top side of the map. Tarzan now able to move up there if they want to, but being able to take down the outer ring of turrets apart from this top lane outer means that it makes sense that Griffin are going to be focusing up here. All ultimates available again after that team fight, as Grace's Weaver's Wall is just about to come back up.
So much space for Griffin. Look at the mini-map. There's a lane ward in mid lane, but Darius has no TP, and they don't have strong engage on the side of Jinair. It needs to be around the Taliyah Skarner. But they were able to use so well in the spring season, but in moments like this, Griffin wasn't in the spring season, the meta has changed. Speed of the game is different, and think about how Jinair won most of their games, Atlas. It was Umti and Grace pop off on a very strong mid-jungle duo, which was Skarner and Taliyah.
Yep.
Or, and of course the or was much more common than that, or Teddy had Gathering Storm and got 6 stacks of it. Teddy's not on an AD carry, he's on a Vladimir who has a similar critical mass, but it kind of has to be Vladimir if he's not playing an AD carry, otherwise the game just ends around him. It's also much more of a snowball meta, so delaying to 60 minutes Vladimir or no is difficult. Seems like a lot of the changes were direct nerfs to Jinair. Speaking of nerfs to Jinair.
Well, it is going to be Sword getting a really nice knock up here as Umti's taking a lot of damage. Chovy, he's going to turn up just in time as well as the Brambleback is in trouble, but Sohan very aggressive, and that is going to be Tarzan being taken down. The passive, like you say, was enough to secure it.
Didn't even have to, though. Was roaming already, gets the red buff, gets the kill. First good moment for Jinair and for Sohan as well, the captain of the Jinair GreenWings. Aurelia didn't have teleport. Choosing to back away, doesn't overstay on the top side. They didn't have the vision for it. Important collapse for Jinair. Bit of a lifeline, just a little indication on that heart rate monitor to show that they're still in the series.
Yeah, and Sohan had a really bad game last time around, so very different story this time.
Needed the gold to start completing those first items. Does Jinair? Trinity Force Merc treads now onto the Darius. Slowly finding things. They're slowly cribbing together items. Steric's Gauge, the most obvious next pickup for the Darius. They're also able to get the topside scuttle. See if Jin can use the Weaver's Wall. That's kind of been the missing variable. They know some summoners are down. Get the Weaver's Wall in, get the Skarner ult down, and try to delete one member of Griffin.
We'll see whether they can do so. A little bit of a different build here for Sword as well. He's gone for the Righteous Glory as the first item. Looks like Abyssal Mask is going to come in second. Wanting a little bit more engaged potential on the Ornn.
Bit of a peculiar one, but of course, Glacial Shroud is so standard on the Ornn that you kind of work out later what you need to pick up. And this is definitely not a Frozen Heart game, which is usually the no-brains choice for an Ornn.
Certainly not going to need too much armor.
And no one's really auto-attacking except for the Darius.
Yeah, and he doesn't care too much about attack speed just in general.
He has an auto-reset for his passive, so you're right. The 40% Stinger attack speed is actually going to be a big deal. So it makes sense to go elsewhere, even though the Righteous Glory doesn't seem like a spike necessarily on the Ornn. Turns out he doesn't need to close the gap. His ult's basically global.
Yeah. Well, we've got Wits End Trinity Force done for Viper at 20 minutes into the game. Actually, a little bit earlier than that. It was about 19 when that one was finished up. So nice clip here for the Aurelia.
His job is to run at the Talia. That's basically what his job is. Where Aurelia shines, we already mentioned that against 80 carries and squishies it works. Speaking of squishies, that's could potentially be death from Chovy with a max range Paddle Star.
Yeah, if he had got the more sparkles as well as a Paddle Star, that would have been a very, very, very dead Grace, but not actually going to worry about it. Gonna have the vision available to really get over there as Viper's just having a great time blade surging around, clearing out these minion waves very, very quickly. The Baron is under real threat. There is a lot of damage here available and some tankiness for Griffin.
Lack of tankiness to magic damage is pretty palpable on the side of Jin. Do notice that it's double magic pen from Chovy, Sorcerer's Shoes, and already the Oblivion Orb, and nothing in terms of magic, just short of a Merc Treads in the mid lane, so definitely primed to be a disgusting Paddle Star in the future.
Oh yeah. And we know that Chovy is very good at landing those. And we'll see whether this game Chovy's going to die for the first time on the Zoe.
What's your bet?
I have a feeling he may not.
I'm with you. Can he go double digits, no deaths on a single champion? The answer is probably not, but who knows?
We'll see whether he can. 4 games and he still hasn't died. It's pretty impressive.
The opposition is going to start ramping up for this team.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Slowly but surely, they really are sort of. Does feel like, you know, the old Smash Brothers, where it just feels like it gets harder and harder as you go through the single player.
They are definitely playing a late 90s home release of a fighting game, arcade mode.
Yep.
Who's the end boss, though, Atlas? That's an interesting question in 2018 summer. Maybe Kingzone because they won Spring.
Yep, true. Although it's feeling a little bit like Gen G are back to world champion status.
And those freaks are pretty damn good, too.
Oh, yes, they are. Well, we'll see exactly who Griffin's going to be facing next, and I'll take that as my answer. Seem to have worked out so far.
It's SKT.
They're going to be the last one on their docket?
They're the next one.
They're the next one. Yeah, that would make sense. But the last one, who's the final boss? Who is the final boss? For Griffin is the question, as Viper clears out this wave very, very expertly.
Wouldn't it be prophetic if the fantastic run was the fantastic run of Griffin?
Yeah.
Through the other teams in the LCK. I know a lot of people are looking at them and wondering. Definitely too early for me to be putting too much faith in Griffin versus the top 4.
Especially when the strength of schedule thing is so prevalent.
But, you know, if you look closely, there's a lot of talent. This team is 6 rookies when it comes to a major region. Only Sword has a bit of experience over in the TCL, as that was a lot of damage.
Yeah, that was an owie. I'd give that one an owie. For Grace, who's just going to say, well, I guess I'm going to go home. Will do so. It's a very early Void Staff that he's picked up. Needing that, of course, understanding that most of his team is magic damage.
Wits End and also the magic resist stack on Sword makes it not the worst purchase either.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's going to pay dividends as the game goes on as well, as Dark Binding is just going to sail past Teddy. He's under a lot of pressure, though. Still, not a lot of relevant damage onto this outer turret just yet, and Jin Air have slowed the game down. We know Jin Air love to slow the game down. They've been successful so far.
Could adjust their control ward line. That'd be pretty important. One's going to be cleared on screen, but there are 2 bot side around the Darius, but there's no objective there, so no incentive for Griffin to have members. So Griffin goes where they need to go. They roll top lane, take down the 3rd turret of the game. Only a single turret this game is the result in terms of turrets for the series for Jin Air.
Humpty as well, he's being completely tracked. clearing out vision now, so at least it does go dark for where the Skarner is, but not too much of a worry as doesn't pick up that sleepy trouble bubble, which could have been a bit of a problem. But
gets the heck out of there with the Predator. He's like, screw this, I'm out of here.
This is an interesting Umpty build. He's going for the Shirelia's Revelry as his first item after the Cinderhulk.
When I was playing around with Skarner on patch 8.10, 8.9, I was actually playing the same build. Bit nerfed this patch because of the introduction of the Fairy Charm and the mana regen that Skarner doesn't really care about onto the item. Yeah. But it's the old build, right? Shirelia's Reverie Skarner is a build as old as time. That was back in the Philosopher's Stone days. I'm not talking about Harry Potter, by the way. But it's still a pretty good item. The AP scale on his ult, nothing to really speak about. He has a bit of AP scaling on his shield and his Fracture as well. But more about the team utility here for the Skarner.
Yeah, I used to build Hextech Gunblade Skarner. Certainly is able to utilize some of those AP ratios. As, yeah, Griffin at least have complete control around this Baron area. Not sure whether that is going to be something they're going to be taking in the near future, but certainly is an option and something that Jin Air needs to bear in mind as there are a whole lot of pings going on towards that topside river. Did getting the vision involved, and Griffin know exactly what is going on. Not sure whether the vision is available here as Viper moves over. He's going to clear out the control ward.
Griffin are largely around baiting around objectives. Their engage is strong, but their siege is poor. Only Chovy has true siege, so getting a pick around Baron with Trouble Bubble, Orin, and the Trundle Pillar is actually the best way for them to find a way to assault the base. They got most of the easy objectives, only 3 inner turrets remain when it comes to those easier objectives, so expect Griffin to make a pretty extended setup around Baron, and if Orin can be the one to tank it, then definitely have a lot of options to play around that objective.
And if we're looking at Jin Air as far as times to fight is concerned, I feel like now is probably a decent option. Spellbinder and Rabbidan's Deathcap done here for Teddy. He's going to be doing a fair bit of damage, as well as the needlessly large rod being put on top of Grace. Already has the Void Staff. That damage going to be augmented with the magic penetration, plus the Sterix, and some magic resist now picked up for So On. Could be a time to fight.
They kind of also need the setup, though. They kind of need Darius and Vladimir from different flanks and a Weaver's Wall, cutting people off, and with Summoners up, and Griffin being quite respectful. That's already a multi-point plan. It can be very hard to enact in reality. But you're right, in terms of items, I think they're ready to go. It's just the setup is multi-step and quite particular. For now, kind of waiting for the moment to drop into their laps, and that moment may never come.
Yeah, Griffin have been demonstrating that they do know exactly how to start these fights as Viper. He's here to secure that cannon creep. This feels great. He's going to go back home and see what he's going to be picking up next.
Guardian Angel would be my guess.
Does have the option. And that's going to be completed. Just had the stopwatch. Completes it from that.
It's the Rambo at Talia and also Live build.
Yeah. Thinking maybe he'd start his Sterix at this particular stage, but decides that he doesn't need to. Even sells his refillable potion because now just feels like he doesn't need it. He can Blade Surge to get that health back. Chovy has finished his Banshee's Veil, so that feels great. 3 items now done.
Grace is trying to play piggyback with Darius, try to take down the Orin in the side lane. Orin has a lot of items, a stopwatch, and flash, so percentage chance of that happening, close to 0.
Yeah, 3,000 health. It's going to be tough to get through that duo. Teddy's continuing to farm, though. That CS lead for Viper hasn't extended as this game's gone on, as Tarzan. He's going to find Umpty. We'll see whether the Impale has to be used here, but no, not going to happen. He's just going to pop his Shirelias and get himself out. Jin Air pressured away from the Baron, which could be relevant. There's now Viper. He's going to flash forward, lands the ult, as well as Grace is in trouble. He's going to get stunned and just ripped apart. Viper grabs it, and Umpty, nothing he could do to stop it.
One flash is not like the other. Well played by Viper. Both stuns hit. They get the disarm as well. Goodbye. So the health bar there for Grace. That means the Weaver's Wall is no longer there to try to turn a fight with terrain. They don't have a control ward on the pit, so frustratingly, a lot of vision open for Jin Air. That makes these sort of poke-offs a little bit more difficult to actually make happen.
Chovy just fishing for some paddle stars as they have actually started off this Baron. Teleport available from Sword, but he's also close by.
He has more information than he should do in this particular case because of that ward. Could be an MVP ward, only now is it clear.
Yep, Shirelia's is still on cooldown, I believe, for Umpty as well, as Crystalline Exoskeleton also there for a speed boost, but Umpty's going to be running the wrong direction, but Tarzan just took too much damage. not going to be able to get there as the popcorn chicken's eaten very quickly there by Viper.
So pretty early in the games, Grace already back up as the home guard into the Weaver's Wall. So not the right time for the players.
Oh,
Speaking of plays.
Yeah, another pick could actually come in. Chovy a lot of damage with that one Paddle Star and picks himself up the flash that was dropped by Umpty as well.
We talked about flanks. Here's one.
Yeah, Teddy's trying to get in there. He actually flashes on top, gets a lot of damage, and immediately pops Tarzan. Great fight to be started off here as Chovy looking for Grace, but he's separated from the team. Weaver's Wall is going to get dismantled now as Sohan looking for Sword Stopwatch. Very, very late, and he's going to be taken out as well. Teddy grabs 2 in this fight, and he could be the late game carry that Jin Air were looking for.
Teddy's super play is usually just AD carry mechanics, but on the Vladimir shows the sort of flank that we've seen so many other AD carries struggle with. Really, really big play for the side of Jin Air, spares their blushes and gets them a real foothold in the game.
Yeah, and the Quadra Force actually being picked up here. But let's have a look at this fight one more time as Teddy just pops the troll.
And consider how different that team fight is to basically any other one Teddy has played on the professional scene. He's initiating and picking someone off with his flash in a team fight in order to win it. Beautiful flank from him. Sword wastes the stopwatch. Very, very unnecessary use. He was always going to die. It's while Viper was in base as well. Clutch stuff from Teddy.
Yeah, really beautiful stuff, and we weren't expecting it because Teddy in the early stages was bullied around by Viper in the laning phase, as well as Lehens really giving them a rough time. It looked a little bit like, Deft yesterday, just uncomfortable on the Vladimir.
Agreed.
That fight was fantastic.
Laning a bit uncomfortable. They seem to not really know the full limits of their champion or the Aurelia in particular. But Teamfight Vladimir has been a bridge too far for some of our players. Think of BBQ struggles to make it work on both Ares and Ghost. This was awesome by Teddy, and now another team fight.
Yep, Umpty taking a lot of damage. Gonna get the wild growth, but it's not enough as the ultimate comes out from Viper. He now wants to try and get the work done, but he goes down to the Guardian Angel. Here's the flash from Lehens just to get on top with the Soul Shackles. He'll get stunned, he'll get destroyed by Viper as well. And Teddy now has to look on in horror as the rest of his team just crumbles around him.
Not clear if he had the Hemoplate, does have it now, might have been on cooldown before, but wasn't able to have the same teamfight impact. Much better from Griffin. They don't lose anyone, they're on the Baron. What will Jin Air do?
Well, Teddy's looking to try and kill Lehens as the Hemoplate just used on him. He just wants to pick himself up 1 kill, but that is going to give the Baron easily over to Griffin, and it's just a stopwatch that Lehens had to use to stop himself from going down to that one. Not worthwhile. Easy Baron and a really nice fight from Griffin.
So Hemoplate is available, get the confirmation. Was just a stopgap from Teddy. You could use it here, but there's no other person to capitalize on it. Doesn't use it to dissuade. I don't think it would have had the required impact. Just flattened by the first half of the giant horror was the mid laner. Goodbye Grace, goodbye Baron. Griffin back into the game. But the seesaw is encouraging from Jin Air, who are never in game number 1.
Yeah, and Grace just having a horror performance today as well. 0-5-0 currently on the Talia. They've got 4 kills on the board. It's not like they've been completely steamrolled, but he hasn't been able to get credit for any of them.
You hate to see it, and I must admit that recently I've been looking at Jin Air and saying, what if they had Hanwha Life Esports substitute mid laner back, as Kuzan, of course, vacated, but has only played 2 horror games on the bench for previously the Rocks Tigers, now Hanwha Life Esports, and Jin Air, they went with 2 inexperienced mid laners, just as formerly of Longzhu, has played a couple of games. Aurelion Sol is decent, but otherwise hasn't had an impressive performance. They've defaulted to Grace, and he's definitely been exposed a few times by some of his opposition.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like they're missing Kuzan a lot. We were expecting that to be a big upgrade for the then Rocks Tigers, now Hanwha Life Esports.
We couldn't have known about Lava.
Yeah, Lava just resurging into a good player out of nowhere.
Emerging.
Yes, sorry. He really hadn't had a very good time. Had some good shields on his Orianna, I think, that one time, maybe.
Ah, yes, the shield max Orianna player.
He was very utility in 2017. Good wave clear comes in from Grace, though, so that at least buys them some time. Baron buff still available for 1.5 minutes. Sohan deals with the bottom lane, and they've actually got pushing waves everywhere else other than this mid lane, so Griffin's struggling, but now the Banner of Command comes in. Sword not going to be seismically shoved,
but also zone with the Ornhorn, but they'll hold on to it.
Yeah, they don't even need to utilize it here, as this inhibitor should just get brute forced by Griffin. Teddy off to the side. Lehens has been landing the clutch dark bindings that they need. That is going to secure this inhibitor in the mid lane. All too easy now for Griffin.
This game for me has answered one question. I needed to see the sort of performance from Teddy because he had struggled previously on the non-AD carries, and he's looked more adept on Vladimir than Deft, someone you could make a similar criticism of, has. So individually, that's good news for Teddy. But unfortunately, when it comes to a team game, it's not as big. And now Teddy might be caught.
Yep, Horn comes in. Perfect timing there, but Teddy is going to be able to flash to get out of the way of the knockup. As the ultimate flies forward, yeah, it's going to be Viper looking for these kills. Jumps into the backline, just evaporates Grace. He's not doing anything again in this fight. It's 2 kills going in, and that's just most of the damage now done. Not going to be utilized now for Jin Air, and I have a feeling Griffin could even just push further forward. Umpty not going to find the fracture, and they're actually zoning Jin Air away from their own base.
They're trying to bring in a minion wave and zone away Jin Air, and you're right. Why not just go for the finish?
Yep, first Nexus turret now under fire. Lehens just by himself. Soul Shackles is going to be utilized just to stop them from getting this work done. As Solon didn't offer any damage back, and yeah, we're not having a look at the Nexus falling, which is the important one. 50 gold goes over to Chovy, who remains unkillable on the Zoe.
And Griffin remain undefeated in match score. They moved to 4-0, a couple of games lost, but that means 20 on the Trot Atlas. They have made it to 20, 14-0 in spring season of Challenger. 2 wins on the Trot in the promotions, and now 4 wins on the Trot here. That means they have hit 20. They face SKT next. Will it be blackjack for the side of Griffin? Because I think you have to be a pretty big betting man to bet against them.
Yeah, exactly right. Griffin, really, I'm starting to become a believer. We're going to need a few more games, I guess, as they move up the difficulty scale. But damn, it's been a pretty good performance so far from Griffin. I'm just looking forward to seeing more Zoe play out of Chovy. When he dies that first time, we get to see what his KDA is going to be. It's just going to be ludicrous. But you can see some dejected faces on the side of Jin Air. So not having his greatest days. You saw him just wondering what the heck went wrong. He was the one that managed to get that kill to start the ball pseudo-rolling, but wasn't enough to get them over the line. And I was the most impressed by Griffin's controlled play this time. They were a little bit of, last time we saw Griffin on the Rift, it was you, Papa, talking about them being this slow-rolling team that can fall behind a little bit early on, but then team fight immaculately well when you get to the late game. This wasn't that. This was them shutting down Jin Air as soon as they set foot on the Rift.
You can definitely take Griffin by storm in the early game, but Griffin controlled the pace of game number 1. Griffin frequently controlled the pace of late games, and we saw in game number 1 was possible if they get a good foothold in the early game. So I think other teams who are stronger in the early game than the Cacao-led Jin Air might be able to have a bit more of an impressive performance against Griffin, but you also reach that turning point where betting against Griffin in team fights is becoming more and more of a fool's errand. Nice closeout of the second game. It wasn't quite as clean as game number 1, but still very, very effective with a very different draft. Viper showing us a new champion. Definitely had more mastery of the Aurelia than his opposing number Teddy did last time out. Teddy, again, one of the few good news stories, had a good game on the Vladimir, so maybe the effective champion pool does grow a little bit. But Jin Air fans, you know, they're probably like a lot of people who are watching this game. They look at the patch notes, they wait for the AD carry meta to be back, because when the AD carry meta is optional, and in Korea at least, usually held against a team rather than a positive for the team, it's hard to see the Teddy win condition come online, and if that doesn't happen, Jin Air doesn't do a lot of winning.
Yeah, we know Bang has been very outspoken when it comes to this current meta, doesn't really like it very much at all, but let's have a look at who picks up the MVP, and it is going to be Chovy. Grabs his second, I believe his first one was on the Zoe as well. 2-0 and 5 remains completely immortal on the Zoe.
Getting like a long streak. The longest streak I remember of being immortal was Trace on Gangplank. It's a long time ago, summer 2015, my first season here.
Yeah.
Went something like 7 hours of gameplay without dying. To be fair, the meta was long games, and who knows, maybe that's our meta in the future, but that was my favorite stat that I put together. This stat for Chovy is still impressive, again considering his tender age, 17 years, and the better part of 3 months. is Chovy, and you know what? He doesn't look it. He looks very accomplished on the Rift. So does Viper, who is 17 himself, will turn 18 later this year. Tarzan had very good controlled jungle game, 2 in a row on the Trundle after a lot of jungle bans come through, and the smites just weren't working for the Jin Air junglers.
Yeah, more Sparkles picking up a Dragon kill is certainly not what you want. Down to 22 health after the smite was a huge problem, as Lehen's used all of his mana in this fight absolutely perfectly, securing these kills. Honorable mention needs to go to his Morgana play.
I thought there was some very good Irelia as well.
Oh, yeah.
Flash hold is not an easy mechanic with the travel time, but able to make it look easy. One nice flank from Teddy that won't be in this particular reel, but it's definitely the only one as Jin Air fan you would want to add to your YouTube favorites and watch later, as they were crushed by Griffin, who are significantly better than Jin Air GreenWings, at least in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it certainly does look like it now, as we're going to be able to talk to Tarzan and Chovy as we move over to our MVP interview. So once again, we get to know our newest team in the LCK. So let's throw it over to Joel to take us through the translation.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Joel with your interview translation with Griffin, looking just as good as ever. Wins another one, this time against Jin Air GreenWings. We're going to be hearing from the MVPs with Tarzan and Chovy. And cheers to. Just once again, a brilliant performance by these guys, and of course we get to see Chovy for the first time. Tarzan, would you like to say hello before you go in? Hello, my name is Tarzan. I'm the jungler for Griffin. He seems a little nervous, this guy on the right, and would you like to say something? Griffin's mid laner, Chovy. Definitely feel the nervousness in the way he just says hello, but and you are the youngest player in Griffin, born in 2001. Tarzan, when you were born? I was born in 99. Tarzan, you're pretty young too. Only seems like 2 years apart. Doesn't seem like that for some reason. Do you feel that he's just a youngster sometimes? It just feels like, you know, no matter how young he is, it just feels like the chemistry is still there between you guys, doing so well in the jungle and mid lane. I mean, he's a very goofy guy and just really entertaining that provides us with a lot of good morale for our team. Do you feel like you're goofy? I feel like I am. I feel like you are too. Tarzan, we want to ask, you're consistently putting up good numbers and putting up good performances, and it felt like you would have received the MVPs a lot more, but do you think about that sometimes? I mean, talking about since Challenger's career, I haven't received basically any MVPs, and but I feel like I'm just adjusted to it, and I feel like I'm used to not receiving MVP, even if I play the best. And we feel like it's the junglers are the ones that are important in this meta, and just feels like the junglers do really need a little more recognition. How do you feel about that? I mean, I do want to receive MVPs at times, but just winning the games is the most important, so we don't care that much. Do you want to play Master Yi? I definitely want to play Master Yi if I get a chance. But you know, we have to make sure it stays alive in the picks and bans before I get to use it. I just feel like you have a really good use of the wide champion pool, and just shows how great you have done so far. The first game, you did come in with a Trundle, and you did so well with that. Get to look at some of the highlights to see what exactly that you did. You got the MVP performance out of it. This was a steal that came in. Did you feel like you came in, you knew you were going to steal in? I mean, the smite was feel like it was going to be really weird, so I had a kind of a feel that I was going to get the steal there, so I flashed in for that one. Did you feel like you wanted to go in like that regardless? I mean, at that timing, giving away that Drake was going to be huge, and the opponents could take a big advantage of that, so we wanted to make sure we stopped that at all costs. And Chovy, you're watching from the bench in game 1. Did you feel like he was going to get steal there? I was watching, and you know, I just saw that we got the steal, and I feel like, you know, this was definitely a thing that I didn't expect, and something that we want to ask junglers always is that, does it feel like the one that steals away is the best jungler, or does it gets the jungler is the best jungler? Which one is it? I feel like the one that steals away is the better jungler. And you have to always worry about team fights opening up, and the one always, you know, gets the steal off, always has an advantage to the team fights, and of course you can't really ignore the psychological advances that are involved in getting your objective stolen like that. And with Chovy, gonna talk about you in game 2, and it just feels like a trademark for you now with the Joey and Zoe, and you guys see how that went through. And how was that in the mid lane? That was a super save that we felt like you wouldn't get out of this one. I knew that even if Skarner came in, I knew I was gonna stay alive. Cause I had the double flash. Did you tell Tarzan that you were gonna stay alive, so don't even come into the lane? I never really told him that, but you know, still felt a little bit safe. Tarzan, weren't you scared that he was gonna die there? And when he got ultimate at the in from the Skarner, I thought that he was gonna die, so I was kind of surprised that he stayed alive. It just feels like the sleep bubble allowed him to just stay alive there. I think even if I missed it, I think I still would have stayed alive. Just feels like the mechanically talented players do really have a lot of flexibility in the way they always have confidence that they're going to stay alive. Just feel that how is your intuition and just how is Chovy's intuition and just his overall reflexes? It's pretty alright. And of course, but if he died, what happened? I mean, yeah, you don't see him die though. That's the thing. You know, Chovy, you don't see him die in key situations, so something we have confidence in him for. And with the Zoe being such a staple pick for you now, and I feel like the opponent, you know, doesn't really know what else you play. I mean, since you feel like you want to share some other champions that you have a lot of confidence in mid lane, something that you want to just let it out there so the opponents can get scared before they see you once again. I do have a couple. I do have 4 more that have a lot of confidence in. And Tarzan just has a little smile and has a little smirk on his face. And do you feel like you can trust him on that pick? I think, yeah, he can actually say over 4 actually. So just feels like the confidence is getting to you guys. I mean, you guys are winning a lot more games, and we have nothing else to argue with you about. So. And you do have multiple talents in your team, and the team fights and also the picks and bans has been pretty stellar as well. So it feels like the variety of how you guys can establish your talent in multiple ways has been really good for the side of Griffin as you guys advance towards each game and such. Does it feel like the players are really just sharing that information back and forth? I mean, including the coaching staff, we always try to share our insights, but always the final decision does go over to the coach. So you know, we always trust him to make the final decision that is best for us. It just feels like the establishment, the structure, and the systematic things of the team has already been well established with this Griffin team now. And we're talking about Skarner appearing to the scene today, and we thought that just going with 1 win and 5 losses and with the record, and just feels like you have kind of a record with playing the Skarner very early in the meta. And how do you feel about right now in the current meta, maybe the strengths and weaknesses of that champion? I mean, Skarner's never really a bad champion, and just putting up the CC just does well. And with Morgana, if you do have multiple ways to avoid CC, like putting the Black Shield above the Skarner, that can help quite a bit as well. So as long as the Skarner can stay alive. And let's talk about outside the game just a little bit, something that has a little to do with the actual games itself, but and Tarzan and Viper, people say that they look alike in appearance, and something that has been coming across from friends, and Viper kind of seem to agree. How do you feel about that though? It's just because of the glasses. It really is, and that's the only reason. What about the line around your chin? That V line right above there. We know that's the kind of the big similarity there. Chovy, I mean, you live with these guys. How do you feel about that appearance similarity between the two players? What is the big difference? Is there something that you want to say in specific? I think they're not that different. They're a little bit more similar, even in personality and the way they kind of act and way they talk. It's a little bit similar. And they are both fun and good to have around. Because definitely we'll probably see a lot more vibrant interviews from Chovy later in the season. But Viper does say that he's better at these mid to top champions, better than the mid laners and top laners out there. And how do you feel about that? With you being a mid laner yourself? I just really he can be comparable to me in terms of mechanics, so I'll give him that. Griffin is on a 4-game winning streak, and you're still on the uprise and doesn't know where to stop in terms of how far your team can go. And so of course with getting the win, anything to say about the win that you got? It feels great to get the consecutive wins, and feels great. Of course, anything for the future now that you got this win and carry forward for the next games ahead? I mean, no matter what team we meet, we'll try to get the consecutive wins, and I feel like if we can stick with this and try to show the fans that we're definitely not done here. Just goes to show you that Griffin is still definitely has the confidence remaining in their systems, and goes to show you that the 4 consecutive wins for Griffin, and that's going to be it with the translations, and I'll send it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Joel, for the interview translation. Always good to get to know the players from Griffin that we have only just met this year, but they still aren't very good at losing.
No.
Best of series, I don't think they've done it yet.
Moved to 20-0 on the year. Next one's against SKT, and with SKT struggles. 21, legal drinking age in America, looking likely. But Atlas, you and I were looking over that schedule as the interview rolled on, and they have the most scary schedule you could ever imagine.
After that, yeah, it gets real scary. It's what? Kingzone, KT, FLICKR, then Gen.G. Gen.G considered the final boss this time around.
World champions, baby.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to do it. And of course, having Kingzone struggling a little bit in the early weeks makes some sense that they would go before the other 3. But looking at them, they've managed to get up to that first place. But of course, having that extra match ahead of Gen.G and FLICKR is going to do that for them.
Here is our match day from here. 5 p.m. Our usual start time. We will resume. SK Telecom versus MVP. SKT with no game wins. MVP with a couple. Yeah, that one goes. And then Gen.G versus Hanwha Life Esports. It's not necessarily going to be a guaranteed test for Gen.G, but Hanwha Life Esports are not a free win by any means.
No.
So it should be a very competitive final series of the day.
Yeah, we'll see whether Gen.G can continue their fantastic form. One of the great tests in Hanwha Life Esports, because I feel like they never just roll over. They're like the measuring stick that you can measure a lot of our top teams and bottom teams against.
It's going to be a long break, guys, about 49 minutes, and we'll be live with the pre-game, so stick with us. SKT coming soon.
Yeah, we'll be back right then after a decent break. Go get some food, and we'll see you after.
But you're the criminal. No implication, you're unpredictable. Time to lose control. Hey.
up next, SK Telecom T1 MVP 2018 League of Legends Champions Korea Summer Split.